Guys, I'm Sam Zuo. I made close to 200 grand last year from doing Airbnb arbitrage, all without owning a single home.
Holy crap, 200 grand a year. I didn't realize it was that big.
I remember the first ever booking that I got was $257. It was in February of 2017.
Okay, so my understanding of this business, and you said, hey, this is all without owning your own property. So this is uh, signing a long-term lease on a rental property and then turning around and saying, I'm going to turn it from a long-term rental into a short-term rental and profit on the difference. Yes?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. As simple as that. Yep.
What's the
Yeah.
portfolio look like today?
Well, we have a few different units all spread out in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, probably one of the most profitable markets, I would say,
Yeah.
aside from San Francisco, because San Francisco has legal restrictions. They recently enforced a law that you cannot do short-term rental for more than 90 days. And so that market is pretty much out. There's a way to get around it, but that's more of an advanced way, which essentially what you do is, instead you can do your lot in 90 days. So you just do 90 days short-term rental, right? And after 90 days is up, you can turn it into a monthly rental and do a monthly sublet through Airbnb, which you're probably going to get more money, but you just not going to get as much from short-term than,
As if you
say,
were
your
turning
monthly
it over.
leases.
Yeah. So how many total properties are you managing right now?
I have about 9 right now.
Okay. Does it ebb and flow, or do these landlords um, say, okay, I don't want to renew with you for another year? Like, how does that work? Or how is that? Are you
Yeah.
actively seeking more? Like, I'm curious what goes on there.
Yeah. So currently I'm taking a break from it. I'm traveling the world. I
Yeah.
decided that 2020 was my year to go do what I want. Because for the last 3 years, I've been buried in work, finding more units, developing more relationships with landlords, property managers, building the blog, right? Teaching about the process, my process of how do you actually go out, find a profitable location. How do you convince the landlords to work with you, right? And how do you furnish them? And how do you optimize your Airbnb listing? All of that, I decided, yeah, it's time for me to actually take some time for myself. So now I'm just traveling the world. I'm in Lima right now.
Living the dream. You were in Europe last time we connected. You're all over the map, and you got this thing that runs pretty much by itself, or at least in a time
Yep.
leveraged way, that's paying the bills while you do it. So very cool to check out. What does that initial research phase look like, where I said, this sounds interesting? Is just pulling up Craigslist or like Zillow rental listings and saying
Yeah.
like, what is available in my town?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, even before pulling up a Craigslist, just go to Airbnb.com and then see what kind of supply that you have in your area. Say if you live, I don't know, somewhere in Virginia. I have a lot of students in the East Coast or near Washington, D.C. Just go up to Airbnb.com and do a real-time search of like, oh, okay, here are the available units in my area, and this is how much they're charging. And then what you can do is then go to Craigslist, right? Find something similar in a similar neighborhood and see what they're charging you on a monthly basis or on a yearly basis, right? So say, you see a property, you see a 1-bedroom property on Airbnb in an area that's, $150. And,
Okay.
you can get $3,000 from Airbnb. And then you go to Craigslist and you see, oh, this, the same unit in the roughly same area is going for $1,500. Oh, I can actually profit $1,500 from this one unit.
Okay, assuming 100% occupancy, like is that
Right.
probably not common out of the gate, but maybe you can get there over time through listing optimization and
Exactly.
stuff.
Yeah. So hotels actually they struggle to keep, around 70% occupancy rate. And a lot of my students are doing 70, 80%.
Okay. Do you like to go after those like 1 bedroom condo units versus like a whole house lease?
Yeah, it really depends. When you do a house, you open up for different liabilities essentially, because you have to think about are more people are liabilities. So what I tend to do is I tend to focus on business areas. So what I teach my students is that, all right, there are different markets, right? There are the touristy areas. Like, do you want to be near a Disney park or Disneyland? Do you want to be near a Yosemite National Park that's got like 200 million visitors every year? Or do you want to be near business, industries? Like, for me, a perfect example is, San Francisco Bay Area. There are a ton of startups. Google's there. Everyone's there. Facebook, Microsoft, right? We get a lot of business clients, and business clients tend to have a deeper pockets. Like, they don't care,
Less price
because their
sensitive.
companies, they're less price sensitive. They don't care about, oh, this unit is charging me $250 versus $200 a night. They just don't care. So that's, what I tend to focus on. I tend to focus on the 1 bedrooms and the studios and the 2 bedrooms.
Okay, yeah, they've got their per diem and their company. Hey, you can book whatever you want. You
Yeah,
can book a hotel. You can book
exactly.
Airbnb. We don't care. And especially, I imagine for longer term travelers, they're like, well, I like to have a little more space to spread out. Okay, so I'm going down this research rabbit hole. I find a long-term lease that looks like it might have an attractive spread versus the daily rates that I'm finding on Airbnb. What does your initial outreach to the landlord look like? Because I imagine,
Yeah,
like, dude, I
exactly.
don't want to touch. Like, if I wanted, a rotating cast of characters in my house or in my unit, I would do that myself rather than
Yeah.
a long-term lease.
If you're flat out going to say, hey, landlord, can I Airbnb your unit? Good luck. And that was the mistake I made initially, is say, hey, like, this is a great unit. I was wondering if I can use it as an Airbnb. And, like 99.9% of the time, I just get laughed at. Like,
Yeah.
no, like, who are you? Right. So one of the main things I teach is, all right, establish yourself as a credible source, right? One of the things I say to students, or I teach my students, is, hey, go out and establish an LLC so that you have more credibility. You show to potential landlords that, oh, this dude actually has his stuff together. He's just not some guy that's found my listing on Craigslist and that, wants to turn it into like a short-term Airbnb, and God knows what kind of clientele they have.
So that's step one, is presenting yourself as a representative of, in my case, NJL Enterprises LLC, a property management company or a boutique property management company or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. When you say short-term rental, Airbnb, landlords are automatically going to think, yeah, okay, this guy has an LLC, whatever, has a company, but what about all these like crazy things I've heard, right? Like these like meth parties, or like, like all of those crazy things you hear.
Yeah.
Well, what tends to happen in media is that negative news stick, right? But 99.5% of the time, normal people like you and me are staying at normal Airbnbs, and we're just normal people that want a roof over our heads, right?
Right.
So how do you combat that? It's just, we'll tell them, hey, actually every guest gets screened. We collect their driver license or their government ID so that, when something does go wrong, we actually have something on file. So that will handle their objection about the type of guests that come in. And you can even add on and say, hey, we only deal with professional, and all of the guests are at professional caliber, and we don't deal with party goers or people that are looking to throw an orgy or something like that.
Like, especially if you're targeting that like business traveler, like,
Yeah.
hey, here's a high-rise apartment right next to the Google campus or something. Okay.
Yep, exactly. And then the third thing is, if you think about a landlord, what they want to do when they want to lease a long-term, when they want to lease out their apartments, they want to collect their rent check.
Yes, I don't want to think about it.
Right. Yeah, they don't want to think about it. They want it to be a purely passive thing. And a lot of people ask me the questions like, well, why won't landlords just do it themselves? Because, running a short-term rental business, think about every time a guest leaves and a new guest comes, or a new guest comes in, you have to turn that unit around. Most landlords, they just don't want to do it. They just don't want to deal with the hassle, because they've already spent so much energy, time, and money on buying that investment property. They're just simply like, this is not something I want to do. So what you want to come in and promise them, and you say, hey, landlord, like, you're going to collect your check regardless. Like, we're going to guarantee your monthly check for the next 12-month lease, or, whatever your lease is, 12 months, 15, 16, 24 months.
You're calming their fears on that front. Hey, look, we're a professional outfit, even if you got no portfolio to speak of at the moment. You say,
Mm-hmm.
look, it's guaranteed rent, guaranteed cash flow for you. We'll take care of any of the potential headaches, the turnover. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
furnish the place, I imagine, if it's an unfurnished place. So you have some
Mm-hmm.
upfront investments in doing this. You've got
Yeah.
probably a security deposit, obviously way less than like
Mm-hmm.
buying a condo and trying to do this.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but security deposit, probably first and last or whatever else it is, and then furnishing the place.
Yeah.
So you have, several $1,000s into a unit before you're making your first dollar back.
Yeah, I think my first unit took me about 3 months to make all of the monies that I've sunk into the unit, invested into the unit.
Okay.
It was around like 7,000 for
Okay.
one bedroom. So I got all of that money back within 3 months, and that's when I knew, like, holy crap, like this is only 3 out of 12 months. Like there are 9 more
Wow.
months to go. So like
Yeah.
after that, it's just going to be, after you pay your lease and your utilities, that's just pure profit.
Yeah. That's a crazy time to break even compared with looking at a 3% cap rate on a traditional rental
Right.
or something. It's like, that's
Yeah.
hard to get excited about.
And who's got 20% of a $500,000, condo? Like who's got a lot of that? Not normal folks. I didn't start with a lot of money. I was fired, and I
Yeah.
didn't save that much.
All right. So that's the next question is, if you're in Lima and your units are in the Bay Area, like
Yeah.
who is handling that daily, weekly turnover and cleaning and, meeting guests and handing over keys and all that stuff?
Essentially, there are two areas, right? You have the first area is the front desk, right? Someone that's managing the guests, someone that's checking in, someone that's giving guests instructions on how do you find the apartment, like where's the parking spot, like where's the laundry if I want to use, and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's the front end. That's the front end desk. And we have a co-host that's managing the units currently. And when a guest leaves, you have to go clean the unit. And what we then do is we outsource the cleaning to other cleaners. And we have a few cleaners that are on our team. They'll go to different units depending on the schedule. And for checking in, here's a smart thing. You actually don't have to be, imagine like you have to be in a physical location to check in. Like imagine if you have 3 units, right? You have like, and then you have 3 check-ins on the same day. Like that's crazy. That's really stressful. So what we started doing is we started using smart locks. So that essentially eliminates all of that key exchange
Oh, okay.
stress.
It's a little thing that hangs off the door. You punch in a code. You don't have to talk to a real person. It's like, well, every hotel that I've been to, like I got to go to the front
Yeah.
desk and
Yeah.
they verify my credit card or whatever. And then they hand me the
Yeah.
key. You're saying we can do all that online.
Yeah, you can install a smart lock, or you can do more of a traditional, just get a smart box or a lock box and put
Okay.
your keys in there. That works as well.
Fascinating stuff. And then the cleaning
Yeah.
service is a little bit, you got to have several people or several different cleaners kind of in your Rolodex. Because if you have a couple units turning over at the same day, it's like, well, I'm booked at, between this, 11 to 3 window where it's like everybody's checking out
Exactly.
and checking in.
Exactly. Yeah. A cleaner has probably got 2 to 3 homes, you know, in them per day before your window's out.
Yeah. You mentioned the legal risks, municipalities cracking down on short-term rentals, on Airbnb being a target of that.
Mm,
Have you
yeah.
found your unit, obviously, if you're just have a 12-month lease, you're kind of limiting your exposure there. Have you run into legal problems, or what can you do as a hedge should that come up?
Well, I want to say that don't go to New York City. Don't go to San Francisco. Don't go to all of these like really hot major cities. You obviously want to do your research,
Yeah.
right? You want to downsize or mitigate your risks before you go into a market. So one of the things that you want to do as pre-market research is actually go to, the town, whatever the city that you want to do, and type in short-term rental and see
Yeah.
what kind of stipulations that they have. Now, if they have like really strict stipulations like San Francisco that they make you jump through like 20 hoops, then you say forget it. But that doesn't mean that South San Francisco doesn't work, right? Because they're under different jurisdictions.
Okay. Yeah. Check the surrounding areas.
Exactly.
And if you're outsourcing
Exactly.
all this stuff, I mean, it might make sense to be somewhat local for the furnishing stages of it, but over the long run, you don't necessarily need to be anywhere nearby. Like you're halfway around the world.
Yeah, I've been living this lifestyle for, for like the last almost a year now. So
Yeah.
it's been, I'm living the dream.
Living the dream.
So
Do you do anything once you secure a lease on a property, you got it furnished, anything out of the gate because you're a new listing on Airbnb, you've got no reviews, and you're competing
mhm.
against everybody else who's been on there for years? Any tips for new listings to start breaking even on that monthly rent and profiting on that monthly rent that you're already paying?
Yeah, definitely. So Airbnb has an internal algorithm. Essentially, what they do is they'll boost a new listing for like a certain period of amount for a certain period amount of time. So I think they're usually boosted for 2 to 3 weeks. So you'll get a lot of exposure. What happens is your listing will actually go to the top despite the fact that you have no reviews,
Okay.
right? So you get an internal boost from Airbnb like that. The second part to getting high visibility is making sure you just rack up as many 5-star reviews as you possibly can in that 2 to 3 weeks. So what you do is you go in lower, say 15%, 20% lower than the market rate. So say, you have your competitor that has 60 reviews, it's very similar unit, 1 bedroom, fits 4 people. You want to go in at 80. And the reason why is, you want to get people to start booking your unit and then get them to write you a 5-star review so that you can slowly work your way up.
Is it as easy as it sounds to get people to take a chance on your unit just because they're going to save $40?
Yeah, a lot of people are, they're price sensitive. You get those families that want to come in an expensive area and just to get a feel of like, oh, like what is San Francisco Bay Area like,
Yeah,
and
they're going to take a
they
little bit
tend
of
to
a
be,
risk because you don't have the
yeah,
social proof yet, and in exchange, they'll save some money.
that's one way to look at it. Another way is, if you hire a professional real estate photographer that's going to come in and like take awesome pictures, you're going to get a lot more eyeballs on your listing than say someone who's an amateur that took some photos on an iPhone,
Yeah,
I
me
could
taking
say.
crappy dark lit pictures with my phone. I feel like every
Yeah.
Airbnb I go to, it's like they got the fisheye thing going, and you get in, you're like, hey, this place isn't nearly so big, but I understand
Yeah.
why they got to do it. What else? Anything else for people looking to get started here?
Check out my blog. passiveairbnb.com. I give away a lot of this stuff for free. So if you're interested, you can probably get a lot of nuggets of my process from my blog. Or if you're interested, you can also check out my e-course.
That's passiveairbnb.com. Check Sam out over there. Tons of very useful blog content if you're thinking seriously about this business model. Passiveairbnb.com. Sam, thanks so much for sharing the inside scoop on this rental arbitrage business. And congrats on finding a side hustle that worked for you.
Thanks so much, Nick. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you like more, be sure to subscribe for more money making ideas. Cheers.